Now, your weekly dose of inspiration, perspiration, and just the right amount of bull defecation. The Get You Some Radio Show with your host, the Vice President of Making Shit Happen, Terry Lancaster.
Microphone check, 1 2 1 2. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of the Get You Some Radio Show. I am your host, Terry Lancaster. Now, this is the second beta episode of the Get You Some Radio Show. Last week we had Kenny Landrum talking about social selling, and I'm calling these the beta episodes because these are actually interviews that I recorded a little while back as part of some other coaching and training that I was doing. This week's episode, also pre-recorded, from Mark Tewart, best-selling author of the book How to Be a Sales Superstar. I'm going to be talking to Mark today, so stay tuned for that. But starting next week, we have brand new, fresh interviews specifically for the Get You Some Radio Show. So that will make it the very first official premiere episode of the Get You Some Radio Show. And maybe by next week, we'll see how it goes. But I'm sporting a little bit of a scruffy beard here, and got the Predators jersey on because the Nashville Predators are embroiled in a first-round playoff battle with the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, I don't know how the playoffs are going to go, but I can promise you this. If the Predators go deep into the playoffs, and I keep sporting the little playoff beard here, you're going to be sad because this is as good as it gets. This is only going to get scruffier and uglier as time goes by. So I just want to apologize in advance. But you've got good reason to come back despite my scruffy, scraggly playoff beard. I've got some great interviews lined up over the next couple weeks. Been working while I've been playing the beta episodes. I've been getting my ducks in a row all lined up in one room so we can have some great shows coming up over the next couple of months. I've got dozens of interviews lined up with great authors, trainers, speakers, salespeople, and business people, of entrepreneurs of all shapes and sizes. You're gonna learn something new every week, and you're going to get an action step every week, something that you can do right now, today, to start making your life and your business better today. I'm going to run down some of the authors and speakers and trainers that we're going to have on the show. Pat Helmers. He wrote The Tao Te Ching of Sales. We're going to talk to Pat about how to sell more by selling less. Tony D'Urso coming up. He's the author of Elite Entrepreneur. Tony's going to be on the show next week. Jamie J is my web guy. He's a WordPress expert. He's going to talk to you about building WordPress websites, and he's also going to talk to you about outsourcing your way to success by being more successful by concentrating on the $1,000 jobs and pay someone else to do the $10 jobs. Got a great interview coming up with my buddy Doug Sandler, and this is a big deal. I'm really excited about having Doug on the show. Doug is the author of the #1 bestseller, Nice Guys Finish First, and he's also the co-host of the Nice Guys on Business podcast. He and Strickland Bonner put out this show. I think they do like a show every day. This is monster. They put a lot of work into it, but it's paying off because Inc. magazine just named the show as one of the top 12 business podcasts in the world, and Doug's on this show talking about how to be nice and finish first. Chip Eichelberger is coming on the show, and I know odds are you've never heard of Chip Eichelberger. It's not a household name, and I didn't know who he was until I met him and found out exactly who he is. And he's a motivational speaker, and he's one of the biggest, most impressive motivational speakers in the world, considering that he's not quite a household name, but he is a household name in the speaking industry. And corporations and conventions hire him every week and pay him big money to come in and put on the motivational speeches. He's a former co-host of Tony Robbins. So he worked with Tony Robbins for years and perfected his craft. And Chip is one of the first people I ever met who started talking about this idea. That I got the idea that in order to build a better business, you have to build a better you. You have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of sales and take care of your business. Now, those of you who know me, you know I've been running at least 1 mile every day for the last 868 days in a row now. Chip, when I first met him, this was before my run streak had started, and Chip was doing push-ups every day. So he's been doing push-ups every day for years in a row. And that one thing led to another, and we were talking about this, and that led me down the path that I've been on. So I owe a lot to Chip Eichelberger. We're going to have him on the show to talk about getting switched on in life and in business. Got Bryn Tillman coming up on the show. Bryn Tillman is a LinkedIn expert, and her new book is the LinkedIn Sales Playbook. She's going to tell you how to get the most out of your LinkedIn profile, how to generate leads, how to build better customer relationships. Sherman Moore is coming on. He's an influence marketer. He's going to talk about how to leverage those relationships to get more out of them by putting more into them. Felice Cohen, when I met her, fascinated by her story. This was like 7 years ago, I believe. 7 years ago, she spent 1 year living in a 90 square foot apartment in New York City. And this was before the whole tiny house thing took off and took all over the country. So she was living in tiny houses when tiny houses weren't cool. 90 square foot in New York City. She wrote a book about it called 90 Lessons to Live Large in 90 Square Feet. So she's going to be on the show talking about simplifying your life and how to get the most out of your life with the least amount of effort. So if you notice a trend here, you notice what I'm looking at: how to simplify and magnify. Dave Delaney's coming on the show. He wrote the book, The New Business Networking. And what he does is he combines the offline world of networking, the old school stuff that we've always done. We go to the Rotary Club and we go to the after hours mixers and we go shake hands and kiss babies and make people and exchange business cards. And we do all that. He teaches how to combine that with the new business networking, how to use social media and email and all the new stuff that we're doing to build our networks, and he combines those two to maximize those two. And Jeff Lipsius is coming on the show. Jeff wrote a book called Selling to the Point. This was one of the best books that I read last year, and ironically enough, the point of sales isn't sales. Jeff points out that the point of sales is for someone to buy something. And your job as a salesperson is not to sell them something, it's to help them buy something, to help them make the right decision for you. So making that one little switch and how you look at things can do wonders for your business. Jeff's going to be on the show talking about that. So if you want to hear all of those great guests and more, go ahead and click that button right now, the big red button right up above my head. Subscribe. You'll get every episode in your inbox every week. You won't miss a single thing. And more importantly, you might get a trip to the goodie room. I've got goodies for subscribers every week. Every week, the subscriber of the week is going to get special prizes, just like the Get You Some radio show mega mug. I can't promise your coffee is going to be as good as mine, but I promise it's going to look good on your desk. You can get one of those, and all you have to do is click that big red subscribe button. Every week, we have a new winner. Just like this week, we have our very first winner because he was our very first subscriber. Dan Goodwin. Dan Goodwin from Summerside, Prince Edward Island in Canada. He was our very first subscriber, and he's our very first subscriber of the week. Dan, thank you so much for listening in. Very first subscriber, so right off the bat, we are internationally known. U.S. and Canada. Dan Goodwin, thank you so much for listening in. Click the button so that you could be the winner next week. If you win next week, you might get you some radio show mega mug. But we have special extra guest prizes for next week. We have a copy of Mark Tewart's book. This is How to Be a Sales Superstar. Break all the rules and succeed by doing it, by Mark Tewart. We're going to give away a copy of that to the subscriber of the week this week, along with the mega mug. So click that button. Make sure you tune in. We'll be right back with my buddy Mark Tewart right after this.
Sell more cars. Spend less money. Keep the growth. Instant Events. Instant Events. Automotive advertising. Get the tools you need to dominate your market. Radio and TV, print and direct mail, digital and social media, event decorations, and more. Get what you need when you need it. A la carte. No contracts. No commissions. No bullshit. Call today. Start your sale tomorrow. Instant Events. Instant Events. Automotive advertising. 1-800-352-3305. Get You Some Radio.
Welcome. I'm here with my buddy, Mark Tewart. Now, many of you have heard me speak about my Dallas debacle. The night I give my very first speech in Dallas, Texas at the Sales Management Super Conference, and it was the most mediocre of all speeches in the history of mediocre speeches. And nobody threw anything at me, but I did not knock it out of the ballpark. And I got off the stage feeling bad, feeling low. And then 2 speakers later, Mark Tewart steps up on the stage and he knocks it out of the park. He's got people eating out of his hand. He's got people standing up when he tells them to stand up. He's got people sitting down when he tells them to sit down. They're doing exactly what he wants them to do. And then just when he's got them where he wants them, emotionally vulnerable, ready to roll, he hits them with the bomb. He's giving great super information, and I know he's changing lives in the room. And I felt so bad because my speech was so bad and then his was so good. I started following him around like a lost puppy, and he's never been anything but kind to me since that day. When I got back to Nashville after that event, I did 2 things. The very first thing I did is I called Toastmasters and joined Toastmasters so I'd never give another crappy speech. The second thing I did is I bought Mark Tewart's book, How to Be a Sales Superstar. If you're in any kind of sales, you need to read his book, How to Be a Sales Superstar. And I'll tell you this, if you're in the automotive sales business and you haven't read Mark Tewart's book, I question your commitment to the industry. I think it's the Bible. I think everyone who's in automotive sales needs to read this book, needs to have a copy on your desk so you can refer to it when you need to. My friend, Mark Tewart, how are you?
I am fantastic. I mean, after that introduction, I may just stop the meeting and go on for the rest of the day. I don't know how I improve on that, but you're being too hard on yourself. You weren't bad at that meeting. You were just wound up and keyed up as you would be for your first speech. So yeah, you did good. So don't beat yourself up over that one. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And it gave me a bar to set up from. So I don't feel too bad about it because the first one's out of the way. So
yeah, that's great. Well, Terry, you had asked me to talk about some sales related items. That's what I'm known for: sales management, sales marketing. And in particular, a couple of areas that I was going to address today, if you don't mind, was just talking a little bit about this is right up your alley, how do you market yourself? How do you prospect? And just throw a few ideas out there. And the very first thing that I have people do is just take a blank piece of paper. And on that paper, in the very middle of the paper, I have them put a dot. And that dot becomes the signature of their business. So I tell them, name your business. All great salespeople have a CEO attitude. In other words, they treat it as if it's their business. Even if they technically work for somebody else, they work for themselves as well. And so I want them to start thinking, this is my business. So I want them to name it, to take ownership of it, put initials of what the name is. And then I have them draw lines going out from the middle of that dot. So you're going to have multiple legs, and this stands for all the different ways that you can drive business towards yourself. I have a little saying, lead generation equals dollar creation. So the more leads you create in multiple different ways, the better off that you are. And can you create leads while you sleep? Why? Most salespeople and most entrepreneurs, they fail at a high rate, or if they don't fail, I should say that they don't reach where they want to be. And that is because of the conundrum. And it's very difficult, even for the best of the best. So if you're listening to this, don't beat yourself up. This is something every entrepreneur goes through. And that is the conundrum of working in the business, but also working on the business and working harder on the business than you do in the business. So let me explain by that. What I mean by that is when you work in the business, you're nose to nose, toes to toes with a customer. Now, that could be on the phone as well, but it's a selling situation, if you will. And so we strive for that. But the reality is you have to be working about 24/7 to work on the business. How will you get the people to be in front of or on the phone with? And that's part marketing, it's part sales. And by the way, I don't know that there's such a thing as just separate silos for sales and marketing. I think they have to be hand in hand. Marketing without sales is no good, and sales without the marketing to have customers is an incomplete business. So I look at them as just two parts of the body, if you will. It's still part of the body. So when you start marketing, you start creating these legs. And I want you to name them. And you mentioned automotive, and I'm blessed that, I've worked within the automotive industry my whole adult life, but I also speak and work with other groups, manufacturers, this year CPAs. I spoke to a coaches convention. I spoke to the oldest pump manufacturer in the country. And you know what I found? It really, and you may find this, Terry, but it doesn't matter what the business or industry, within certain nuances, the business principles, the sales principles are almost always identical.
I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's whether it's banking, something like that, or I just find they're all very similar except for certain nuances and culture. So how do you get business? When you're writing down how you get business, if it's the automotive industry, you may have people walk in the door. You may have inbound phone calls. You may have outbound phone calls. You may have internet leads, and those internet leads would have sub-segments. They may have people being drawn to you organically from your website or inorganically from third-party lead providers. You may have referrals. You may have repeats. You may have service-driven business. You may have a BDC, business development center, that could provide business. And I could keep going forever. And I really invite a person to take a time out and to sit down and to start naming these different legs, and then think, what are the sub-tentacles of these? Like I mentioned with phone calls, it's not just phone calls. There's inbound, there's outbound, there's different types. And you'll never, ever, ever stop this process once you begin. And maybe it's because of my age, but in my office, I'm a man, so I'm fairly visual. Men tend to be more visual learners. And maybe because of my age of growing up in a visual culture of learning, I have a whiteboard. And on that whiteboard, I have all the different ways that I try to get business. And some of them are when I sleep. So this is what I'm having you do, but just in a more working manner. So I want you to name the tentacles, the sub-tentacles, and I want you to start thinking of how you can start to really engage and go deep with each tentacle. I learned from a marketing mentor of mine a long time ago that 1 is the worst number in business. If you have one way of getting business, eventually you're going to fail, or you're going to really go up and down. It's called the diving board effect. So if you're waiting on traffic to come to you, or internet is the only way that you get business, if it's one of anything, I don't care how good it is, digital, conventional, there will be ups and downs. So your business is going to go up and down. And what I want to do is level out those ups and downs and continue to go upward. That's why I want to not only develop one spoke and get really good at that lead generation source, but I want to continue to add to those. And the other thing I want to do is something I learned from another mentor of mine, and people probably get sick of me saying this, but it's very powerful. And I call it intentional congruence. So whether I'm doing something online or offline, digital or conventional, there should be some connection, some intentional congruence that can take a customer from being offline to online, or even online to offline. Make something lead to something else. And this is 2, 3, 4, 5 stage marketing. 1 stage marketing is advertising. It's a TV commercial that says, hey, come buy from me. Well, most salespeople don't have budgets to go out and buy radio or TV or conventional type advertising like that. So they have to do a little guerrilla warfare type marketing where it's more of a segmented pieces, and they add them all together. So that is what I want you to start with. Now, how do you apply and go deep? I'll give you just some different examples. If I'm looking to market and I'm a salesperson, I think you need to have your own website. And you say, well, I use my company's website. Hey, I understand, but people buy from people. They don't buy from businesses. They want you. So I want them to know about what you are, your brand, your offerings, who you are, and not only your business, but who you are personally, because people want to know you. They want to trust you. They want to feel good about you. And so often what you need to do in whether it's your website or your social, is not just be business, business, business. I want people to see who your dog or your cat is, your vacation, your sports, your recreation, your exercise, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is that you do, because you don't have a business life and a personal life. You just have a life. And that's the power of what I think social media is as well, because I think it's so much that people, it's kind of like watching reality TV today. When you're watching social media, you almost want to check out Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter to see what somebody is doing, to what they're up to today, because you become an active participant in their life from afar. And there's so many people that I engage with on a daily basis that I don't know. And Terry, is this something you do as well? Maybe you've never met.
Absolutely. I've got customers scattered all over North America that I've been doing business with, honestly, some of them for 10, 15 years, and I've never met them, but we talk business every day. And I have one of my best friends is a car dealer in Sydney, Nova Scotia. He's a guy my age, and he plays ice hockey. So we're calling each other, talking about our hockey games and talking about it on Facebook. You know, we should be talking about car ads, and we're talking about the hockey game that we played the night before, because we're both posting all our stats and everything on Facebook. So anyone who tells you that online friends aren't friends, they're doing something wrong, because it's just as real and it's just an important part of your life as the people that you see face to face every day.
Exactly. And I think it's all about engagement. It's a running story of your life that you're involved with. And you may say, well, I sell widgets, or I sell this, or pumps, or something like that. It's just not the case. Listen, it doesn't matter. I promise you, I've seen it. Whether you're a CPA, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're automotive or retail, or a real estate salesperson, it just doesn't matter. We're people. And people say, well, I do business with Fortune 500 companies. And I say, okay, the reality is that Fortune 500 company is made up of probably several thousand people. Mm-hmm. It's all people. So to your point, it's right. I had somebody do business with me not that long ago that I've never met. I think they're in Canada, if I remember right. And they said to me, I've been reading your newsletter for over a decade. I can't wait to get the latest updates and to check your social to see how your son is doing with football. And so he goes in to tell me about Jake and his life. And, you know, in the last 5 years, it's almost like he knew the story of my son better than I did. And so we're active participants, and never forget that, whether it's your website, whether it's your social. And you know, sometimes I get caught up and I violate my own rules and I know better. I get going on social and I want to talk business about something when I should back off a little bit and get a little bit more personable and get people engaged with the conversation. It's the same thing on my newsletter. If you're sending out a newsletter and it's all business, then you're making a mistake. So for probably 20 years, I've had an email newsletter, and I started with a couple of people. Now it's many thousands. And so I put a place on my website where you can sign up for it, but we're always trying to get people into my email newsletter. Why? Because we have found that if you can engage with me on that newsletter, there's a very good chance that you'll also engage with me on my social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, all these different areas. And then it generally leads to something else. And I have autoresponders set up. So for 3 years worth of autoresponders, if you subscribe to my newsletter, you're going to get something from me twice a week. And hopefully it's not going to be it's not going to be obtrusive. It's going to be about 80% of giving you things. It could be an article. It could be an idea. It could be something I've learned. It could be an aha moment. And yes, sprinkled in there will be something saying, hey, I've got a workshop, or I've got a book, or I've got this. But hopefully by then I've built the trust by giving to you. And, you know, this is a form of influence. And there are 7 or 8 major forms of influence. And when you sell, that's all you're doing is influencing people. And if you can influence better, you sell more. So one of the strongest forms of influence is reciprocation and obligation. If I can give enough to you, whether it's my time, whether it's value, whether it's information, whatever it may be, if I can give enough to you, people start to feel reciprocal, that they want to give back and obligated, and you become simply the only choice. It's a give mechanism. People trust people who are willing to give them something and help them out. It's got to be about them. And if you take this principle, TLC, think like a customer. Don't think like a salesperson. That was the worst advice I ever got as a salesperson. They told me, stop thinking like a customer, be a salesperson. Well, to be a salesperson, you have to have empathy and be empathic, and you have to help somebody solve their problems. And to solve their problems, help them solve their problems, I need to think like they do. I need to get into their heart and their head. And, people start to sense that you have a good heart about what you're trying to do, and they want to buy from you. They'll take it from you. And what you'll find is you'll cross that section where you go from being a sales pusher to a professional salesperson that helps people solve problems in a way that they want to buy from you. And this is, I'm getting off subject just a little bit, but it goes back to it. One of the biggest mistakes I see in sales is what I call looping. And I'm drawing this circle here. It's a loop. And we do it in advertising often too. And I think it's a big mistake. And so it's an insecurity about trying to solve somebody's problems by asking the right questions and trying to converse enough to really help somebody. So what we do through the insecurity is we talk way too much. And what we do is we loop. I'm the biggest, I'm the best, I've got the best, we're the best solution, we're number one. And there's nothing wrong with telling people what your specific defining proposition is, or why you might be the best choice or the unique choice or the one that somebody should look at. But if it's not also in a way about them, and it's not just saying the things over and over and over, it becomes where you push people away and they don't believe your message, even if it's true. And I find this even more with millennials. I was to get off subject, but just a little quick story. I was speaking at this coaches conference, and these were athletic coaches from across the country of all sizes of colleges. And they were there to learn how to recruit athletes and, of course, their parents to get them to their school. And you would say, well, they're masters at that. But, they have the same challenge as everybody else. And so they loop. They keep saying, we have the best facilities, we're the best education, we're this. And they were out of touch, really. And one of the things I shared with them, millennials have the biggest BS detectors on earth. And when they hear you looping, they shut down. It's like, I don't believe any of this. And I've heard it 10 times. They want that personal connection from somebody. And that makes the difference because people buy from people. Well, going back to the marketing, the sales and marketing are intertwined. So if I have a newsletter, I want you to now engage me with social through that. I want you to get on as many social channels with me as possible. I would like for you to also move to a phone call if possible. I would like you get the idea. They're intentionally congruent. Keep adding to these different ways. And I would say never get wedded to one idea. Some people just get gaga over social. And I'm telling you right now, for all the wonderful and incredible ways to sell with social, if I can get face-to-face with you, that's still the very best thing on earth. A phone call is number 2 to me. And then I think social can add all of those elements together and do it. But I wouldn't fall in love with – you're an advertising guy is where you come from, Terry. And here's what I hear a lot. We talk about 3 M's, message, media, and match. And often people fall in love with the media. They love TV. They love radio. They love social. And I think they're really missing the point of it's not so much the media. If you're advertising today, even though maybe newspaper would be considered a more dead and dying media, there are definitely ways that I can make newspaper work in certain marketplaces and really bring an incredible ROI. And that's probably one of the deadest forms of media I see.
Sure.
So don't fall in love with just one media. It's not just the media, it's the message and the match. Would you as an advertising guy agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. It's the message. And it's what you said before, as salespeople, we learned in day one of our sales training, Sales 101, that we have to sell the benefits, not the features, that nobody cares what your product has. They care what your product does for them. And we forget that when we're talking about ourselves and our company, and we all start talking about our trophies and our titles, and we're number one at this and we're best at that. And we forget sales 101, that it's not about us. And even your advertising, I deal with people all the time, and they're wanting to put their advertising, how their grandfather started the business, how they, everything that they've done. But I tell people over and over again, it's not about you. It's about your customers, how you can help your customers. That's the message. And no matter whether you're sending it out with smoke signals, Facebook, or newspaper advertising, that's the message. I'm here to help, and I can help you.
Yes, always start off, with that idea. I can remember speaking at a meeting one time, and the person speaking before me, it was a panel of these people that were looking for resources to do business with. And the gentleman before me was with a large international company, a gazillion dollars of revenue, et cetera. And for 30 minutes, he talked about his company and their revenue, their yacht, this and that. And so I changed everything I was going to do when I came up next. I said, folks, I don't have a yacht. And for the next 30 minutes, I probably, unless you ask me at the end, I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about me. I'm going to talk about you. And I'm going to address what I think from what you shared with me, what your challenges are and how we might be able to help you solve them or assist you in growing your business. And at the end, if you want to know more about me and how we do that, then I'll be happy to talk to you about it. I got so much business out of that. That person could not have set me up more properly. Because for 30 minutes, he looped about himself, and people just don't care. That old adage, WIIFM, what's in it for me? They want to know, how do you help me? It comes across as an arrogance. And people are thinking, how do you pay for that yacht? Well, you pay for it by charging me too much money. So start off with them and dive into them. Dig deeper, whether it's sales or marketing. Dig deeper, dig deeper, dig deeper. The answer is there. And one of the ways you can do this on both sides. For sales and marketing, you mentioned, the old features benefits of selling. Give a feature, but make sure you're telling the benefit because they buy the benefit. Well, take it a little further. We call it FABS, F-A-B-S, features, the advantage of the feature, the benefit of what it does, but more importantly, the S is huge. Story. Tell the story. Facts tell, stories sell. People buy the story of how that feature, the advantage and the benefit works for them. And then weave into it your story of how you're the provider, the solution, and how it's worked, and give specific examples of how you filled that need, how you filled that void for other customers. And when you do that FABS, that takes you to a whole nother level of salesperson. People understand, appreciate, and think in stories and in pictures. And they want that, they need that personalizes it. And that goes back to why social media is so strong if you use it well. And I wanted to give you one other tip. I'll tell you also a little story of how you mentioned my book, How to Be a Sales Superstar. This is a unique story of how I use social media to get my book deal. Well, I belong to the National Speakers Association, and when I was going to do my book, I wanted to do a published book. I didn't want to self-publish it. And I wanted to do it with a well-known, big publisher. And so when I went around to my friends who were well-known authors at the National Speakers Association, they said, Mark, as a first-time author, it's really almost impossible to get a book deal. If it's a business book, you can multiply that by 10. If it's a sales book, multiply that by another 100. It would be like getting hit by lightning twice in December. Self-publish first, and then show how well you did to the publisher, and then you can get a deal. And, I'm a little contrarian, so I remember telling a friend of mine who had sold more books than you can imagine. I said, I'm going to prove you wrong. I respect your advice, but I'm going to prove you wrong. And so what I did was I got on LinkedIn, which is, for me, business. It's Facebook for business, but without the drama. And I picked out my number one publisher that I wanted to deal with, which was Wiley, the largest book publisher in the world, one of the oldest, and out in New York. And so I networked within LinkedIn, and I got from people I knew into somebody who worked at Wiley. And then I kept networking within Wiley, and I finally got to the person that was connected to the editor. And through them, I was able to find a social calendar for that person. And they were going to be speaking at an event in Cancun. And I know this sounds crazy, but I booked a plane ticket and I went to Cancun. And I waited for 2 days for that person to be by themselves. And they were outside and they were taking a break. And I walked up and I engaged them in conversation without, verbally vomiting all over them about my book idea and what I do. But I did it in such a way that I knew what would happen. And they asked me, what do you write and speak about? And so I gave them a short, tight, benefit-driven idea. And he said, I'd be very interested in that. And he handed me a card. And I said, better yet, hold on, I'll be back. I went up to my room. I came back. I gave him 3 chapters I had written. I gave him a 5-page marketing idea or game plan. I gave him a proposal. I gave him a query letter about it. And I said, take, at your convenience, look through this and see what you think. And he said, I promise you I'll read it on the way home, on the plane ride. And I think it was 2 to 3 weeks later, I had a book contract. And a couple of weeks after that, I had a check for my advance. So I called up my friend and I said, hey, when you said you can't do this, I did it in less than a month. I did it in 2 weeks.
I wonder how many great sales stories start with those words. I know this sounds crazy, but
I think, as an entrepreneur, your business is built upon that. If you don't have the wherewithal as a salesperson or as an entrepreneur to keep digging, because let me go to reality. Your business, my business, any person on earth, I don't care if you're watching Shark Tank and you're looking at what you feel is the most successful salesperson or entrepreneur on earth. If I could tell you the amount of those people I've had personal conversations with that have told me that they were in moments of tears. I could tell you about entrepreneurs you would think were some of the best salespeople on earth that told me stories of them crawling up in a bed, crying in a fetal position, that they were quitting. They were done. They couldn't do it. They couldn't go on. They had failed. And something got them out of bed just one more time and took them to the next step. So one of the things I'd share with you as a salesperson, if you haven't ever had the period of your mental and emotional failure, you probably haven't been doing it long enough. This is a microcosm of life for sales and marketing. Dig deeper, push harder, and figure and learn along the way from others like yourself how they've done what they've done to try to create and cut that learning curve. I'll give you an idea. One of my biggest mistakes, there was a great marketer. I've learned so much from this person. But when I first started my business, he looked at a piece of mine and he said, this is god awful. He goes, I don't offer up my consulting because I have a long line of people. I just don't take on new clients. I have people knocking at my door all day. I turn them away. He goes, but you need my help. And I forget what the figure was, but it was a lot of money. And it was the beginning of my business. It's like, I just can't do that right now, So I made that win-then mistake. When I get to here, then I'll do this. The win-then syndrome keeps entrepreneurs broke, unhappy, unsuccessful, salespeople, same thing. You have to, when you move towards me, I'll move towards you. That's the way the world works. I should have spent that money. It would have taken 5 years off of my learning curve and got me where I wanted to go a lot quicker. And you can't give up 5 years in business. It was a huge mistake. I should have invested in myself, which I teach people to do. And at that critical moment, I didn't do it. Have you ever made one of those same mistakes, Terry?
Well, actually, I just did exactly the opposite. I wrote a big check earlier this year that I didn't want to write, that I wasn't ready to write in an effort to do something else to, take myself in a different direction. I needed some advice. And and the guy asked me for the money. And the first thing I did is laugh. I'm not writing that check. But then I thought about it and I said, I can write that check. And 4 months from now, I can be in a position to do something, or 4 months from now, I can still be sitting where I'm at, wondering what the heck I'm going to do. And so I wrote the big check, and it was phenomenal for me because it opened my eyes to some areas that I can take my business into, some things that I do, some more legs and tentacles that I could add under the chart that I never knew were there before. And the money I wrote for that check, I mean, it's a drop in the hat. It can come back in an instant. I mean, it has come back in an instant. It's once you start moving somewhere else, that the money will take care of itself. So actually, that's one of the things I tell people is the money is actually in business. The money is an end result. The money isn't the object. Saving the money isn't the object. Making the money isn't the object. If you can find people to help, you can find a way to help them, and you can find people who can help you, I find the money works out.
Even more than the information that you got, you switched your mindset from a scarcity mindset of money or what you had or didn't have or the risk to a mindset of abundance. And that spending the money was just a crossing the line mentally and emotionally for the commitment, which everything's about commitment. Listen, my first year of selling, I was selling cars in college. And the first year I did pretty good. I made more money than what my dad had made as a union electrician his best year ever, which they make good money. But here I didn't even know what I was doing. I made decent money. And I was probably an average salesperson at best. But I took a month, and this has probably happened to all good salespeople. I took a month where I was mentally, emotionally, physically, every which way I just checked out. I did nothing. I mean, nothing. And my results showed it. And I had a boss that brought me in. His name was Milt. We used to kid that he was the meanest man alive. And I was a young kid, and he put me in a chair across from him, and he stared at me for 2 minutes and didn't say a word, and that alone made me want to wet my pants with fear. And then he looked at me, he said this, and it changed my life. He said, "Mark, son, you're sucking up my air conditioning." I mean, what do you say to that? I suck?
Yeah.
And the reality was, he said, "Listen, I have a lot of professional people here that do very well. I don't have people like you. So you got to make a commitment that this is what you want to do, because you have talent and you have brains, but you need commitment, and you don't have commitment. So by 5 o'clock today, you got to commit that this is what you want to do, and we'll help you succeed, and you got to help yourself. But if not, don't lie to me. I'll know it. But this is the very last day you'll suck up my air conditioning. Get out of my office. I'll see you at 5. And, I thought about it. I had freedom. I was doing well. I didn't even really know what I was doing and already doing well. So what could I do if I made a commitment? Well, I made the commitment. The next month, I had my best month ever by far. And what that taught me was you can't put your toe a little bit in. And what you did with your check is much or more the information. You opened the floodgates of abundance for yourself. And then you realize the money was a drop in the hat. It was nothing. And I can't tell you how many people do not succeed, whether it's marketing, prospecting, self-education, because they won't invest in themselves. And one of the things I can tell you as an entrepreneur, the very best money you'll ever invest, if you have almost none, invest in something in your self-education and yourself, because it's all about mind, body, spirit. What are you putting in your mind? What are you putting in your body? What are you putting in your spirit that will grow you? And if you don't have any money right now and you say, "Gosh, I don't have any money. I've got money problems." Well, I told a guy one day, you don't have money problems if you don't have money. You have idea or work problems, work ethic. You got a lot of problems. But money, you can't have money problems if you don't have money. So what you have to do is invest in yourself, and you'll beg, borrow, steal, whatever it will take, not steal, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
You get the money to invest in yourself, which will pay you back infinitely more if you do that, because it's more about you showing the world, I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm committed, I'm not going away, and whatever it takes, I'm going to make this happen. That's the key, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's social media. It has to be consistent. You can't go up and down. You have to keep at it. Have you found that to be true in what you do as well?
Well, then that's I've been in business for myself for 20 years, and everyone thinks it's a cakewalk, and then people think, "Oh, that's great. He gets to work from home, and everything's beautiful." But everything's not beautiful. There are great days and there are bad days, and you see the picture of people when people talk about their sales success. Everyone thinks it looks like this. It's a straight line to the top, but it's not. It's ups and downs, and it's hard work. And the truth is, as much as I hate the downtimes, as much as I hate when things aren't going great, you have to have them, because without those, you don't really appreciate the great ones. And I told people, I was having this conversation with someone about quotas, that people get so caught up in quotas, whether I hit quota or whether I didn't hit quota. But quota, again, really takes your eye off the ball, because if you're doing great, you don't have to work that hard. I can
Right.
just slough off. I'm making quota. What the heck do I care? I can slough off. And if you're not hitting quota, then you're just depressed and you can't do anything because you're hitting the quota. But what gets you to hitting quota is actually doing the consistent work, and the quota is going to go up and down. It's just like, in baseball, people go through slumps, and you got to get up and keep swinging. The only way you're ever going to hit the ball is to keep swinging. And, the runs are going to hit, the hits are going to take care of themselves as long as you're swinging the bat. So, quit worrying about the end result of it and just get up and do the work day in and day out.
Well, desperation sometimes provides some great inspiration.
Absolutely.
So at times when you have those down moments, it really puts your brain into overload about thinking about solutions rather than the problems. And so when you start thinking about solutions, you come up with these aha moments. And if you look back, the aha moments are not really that big of an aha. You just were focused on the right thing because your subconscious is a goal-seeking missile. And you were asking the right questions. The quality of your life, the quality of your business is based upon your questions. You ask bigger, better, deeper, darker questions sometimes, and you'll get better and bigger answers. And sometimes when you have that desperation, the inspiration gets you thinking. And when you're thinking, you start thinking about how to solve the problem. The mistake is if you just dwell on the problem, you'll bring more problems. But if you get creative about the solutions, all of a sudden that desperation will provide you just so much information where you start thinking about things where you go, well, you know what? Some of this I already instinctively knew, or I had an idea, or maybe I knew it and forgot it. And that's the same thing with self-education, and why when people go to workshops and so forth, 90% of learning you already know or you instinctively may understand, but sometimes you need to relearn, you need to reinvigorate, you need something different. I did a seminar one time in a state where there was a guy who was 83 years old, and in his industry, he was the most successful salesperson in history. And I was told that he was wealthy, he had invested well and done well for himself. And I was so intrigued. I was probably in my 30s. And so at lunch, I asked this gentleman, I said, why did you come? I said, you've probably forgotten more than I know. You're the most successful salesperson in your industry. I know and have heard you're a pretty wealthy guy. You've done well for yourself. Why are you here? You're 83. Not that there's an ending point in any ways. Well, I'm flattered, but why are you here? And he said, well, you had a sales representative that did a meeting for us about this program you're doing today. And they talked about some things I didn't know. And that did get me excited because just because I've done well or I'm 83 doesn't mean I've learned everything. I haven't. There's so much I need to keep up with. And then he said, but that's not why I'm here. I said, now I'm really intrigued. Why are you here? And he said, because they shared with me a couple of things that I definitely knew, that I had definitely done to help me be successful, and I had definitely got away from and didn't even realize I'd gotten away from it. And it made me realize if I had done those things and was successful doing them, but somehow got away from them, and I didn't even realize it till you did this meeting to awaken me to that. He goes, I wonder how much more that I'm missing every single day that would make it even easier. Mm-hmm. And I told him right then and there, I said, buddy, no wonder you are so successful at what you do. Because even so successful, you have what I call a teachable spirit, which is something I find where it runs through a successful person like yourself. Any successful person they have teachable spirits, and they're continually trying to get information. I mean, I worked for a couple of guys that by the time they died were probably, and I know at least one of them, and I believe the other one was a billionaire. How many people could say that? I mean, that's incredible. And one of the things I found most amazing about both of them was that they were still always constantly trying to look for an edge and learn. Imagine that. You're a billionaire, but you're trying to look for an edge and learn every single day. You have a teachable spirit.
And I think you'll find with most of those people, they're looking to look and learn, but they're not looking for the magic bullet. They're not looking for the one answer. If I can get one good idea from Mark Tewart, and if I can get one good idea from Terry Lancaster, if I can get one good idea from this other book, and I can get one idea from this place, I can meld those in to my situation. And there is no magic beans. There's no magic answer. There's no silver bullet, but there's lots of little bitty silver bullets.
I often find people will come to my seminars, and they've been to others, and they've been to the 50 closes workshop, which, hey, it's good to have all that stuff in your arsenal. But if you're looking for a magic bullet, you're probably going to commit suicide with it because you're looking at what you think is sexy that's going to solve all your problems. And reality is you're looking for a shortcut. There are no shortcuts, period. Let me just tell you plainly, there are no shortcuts. So you're right. There's a whole lot of things, and big doors swing on small hinges. So if I can get small things that add up to a big thing, that's just what sales is about. It's generally not one thing. It's a series of 5, 10, 50 things about you, what you've done, your product, your service, your what I call money mirror machine that has got somebody to the point where they say, man, I could do business with you and buy this product or service. Yeah. It's not just one thing. If you're looking for one thing, I think you're mistaken. You're looking for a shortcut. Successful people don't look for shortcuts, or they did and realized it does not work.
Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me this morning. Tell me and tell the folks how they can get in touch with you, how they can subscribe to your newsletter, how they can get a copy of your book, and how they can how you can help them.
You can go right to my website at Tewart.com, TEWART.com. At the bottom there, you can register for my newsletter. There's a call out for my book. There's call outs for workshops, seminars, or speaking. As I mentioned, I do speaking engagements with all kinds of industries. I'm not limited to any type of industry. We do a lot of work in the automotive industry, but I've also worked with banks and manufacturers and all kinds of different things. So if you need help with sales, marketing, training, speaking, consulting, we do all of those things. And the book is How to Be a Sales Superstar. You can get it from my website or it's on Amazon. And I'll be happy to help any of you. If you have any questions, just email me, call me. If there's anything I can do for you, I'd be happy to help in any way I possibly can.
All right. Mark Tewart. Mark, thank you so much again. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your kindness and generosity over the years. You are one of the nicest guys in show business. So,
all right, man. Back at you. I believe it from you as well. So thank you so much.
The Get You Some Radio Show. Yum, yum, get you some. Get you some.
There it is, folks. Mark Tewart on the Get You Some Radio Show. Mark, thank you so much. I appreciate every minute that you spent with me. I know we ran a little long this week. I promised you a 30-minute show every week. We talked to Mark a little bit more than that, but I got a rule. If Mark Tewart's willing to talk, I'm willing to listen. I think you got a lot out of it. I know that I did. Facts tell, stories sell. Keep that in mind as you go about your business this week. Convert your story into stories, apply that to your business, and see where that takes you. We'll be back next week with Tony D'Urso talking about his new book, Elite Entrepreneurs. Click the subscribe button. We'll see you next week, and go Preds.
Get You Some Radio. You've been listening to the Get You Some Radio Show. Subscribe today at terrylancaster.tv to hear more episodes, win valuable cash and prizes, and get free training to help you create an army of buyers who know, like, and trust you before they've ever even met you. It's a big, wide world, boys and girls. Get out there and get you some.